Since ancient times, mirrors have been seen as mysterious objects, but Edgar Cayce interpreted them with an even deeper perspective. For him, mirrors are portals. By gazing into a mirror with spiritual intent, it is possible to cross subtle boundaries of reality and access hidden dimensions of the spirit. This is not superstition, but an energetic sensitivity that, according to Cayce, allows communion with planes beyond matter. Cayce reported in his readings that mirrors could reflect more than just the physical image. They could reveal emotional traits and even karmic patterns present in a person's vibrational field. When one observes the reflection attentively and silently, it is possible to feel the weight of an energy that doesn't just come from the surface. He warned, "Don't stare into the mirror for too long without purpose, as it can amplify unresolved internal states." There are contemporary accounts of people who, after staring into a mirror for minutes, begin to see their faces distort, change expression, or even take on unfamiliar features. Cayce interpreted this as the soul attempting to manifest repressed aspects or fragments of past lives. The mirror in this case serves as a bridge between the visible and the invisible, and what appears there is not always ready to be understood. In many shamanic and occult cultures, mirrors are used in specific rituals to contact spirit guides or obtain psychic revelations. Cayce never denied this possibility, but he made it clear that any practice involving mirrors required purity of intention and energetic preparation. Playing with this type of energy could open pathways to presences we don't understand. During trance states, Cayce himself mentioned having visions that seemed to emerge from smooth, mirrored surfaces, as if a window had opened onto another plane. These visions were never random, but rather arose during moments of deep meditation or spiritual connection with other souls. He believed that the mirror can indeed be a window, but it demands responsibility from those who dare to open it. In the end, the mirror becomes much more than an everyday accessory. For Cayce, it can be a key, a calling, a threat, or a revelation. It all depends on the state of the soul looking into it. What you see in the reflection could be just your face, or something much deeper trying to emerge. But are you prepared for this? How many times have you looked in the mirror and felt there was something more behind your eyes? Edgar Cayce said that, at certain moments, the mirror doesn't reflect the body, it reflects the soul. The way we see ourselves reveals a lot about the state of our spirit, and often the reflection reveals truths we try to hide, even from ourselves. According to Cayce, when a person is emotionally or spiritually unbalanced, the mirror reveals it. Not with words, but with the vibration that returns from the fixed gaze. The soul, in these moments, attempts to communicate. It sends signals through facial expressions, the tiredness in the eyes, the subtle sadness that escapes even with a forced smile. The reflection becomes an internal mirror. Some people cry when looking at their own reflection and can't even explain why. Cayce interpreted this as the spirit recognizing itself and, at the same time, lamenting being left aside. It's as if the soul silently cries out, "Hey, I'm here! Look at me, really!" The mirror, then, reveals the spiritual abandonment that many experience without realizing it. In moments of spiritual lucidity, however, the mirror can become an ally. When the soul is at peace, the reflection also radiates lightness. There's a sparkle in the eyes that comes not from the physical world, but from within. An energy that Cayce said reflects the harmony between body, mind, and spirit. In these moments, the mirror confirms, you are connected to the divine. But Cayce warned, the mirror is merely an instrument, not a judge. It simply shows what's inside you, without masks. It's up to each person to embrace or transform what they see. Avoiding the mirror during difficult times may be natural, but facing it courageously can also be an act of healing. It takes compassion for yourself to see yourself fully. In the end, the question Cayce would leave us with is both simple and profound. When you look in the mirror, do you see yourself? Or do you only see what you want to show the world? The reflection never lies. It only reveals what your soul is silently trying to say. Edgar Cayce understood that there is much more to mirrors than their polished surface reveals. In ancient traditions and spiritual rituals, they have always been treated with respect, or even awe, and Cayce endorsed this care. According to him, Mirrors are energy receptors and, when activated by wrong intentions or charged environments, can become veritable magnets for unbalanced spiritual entities. During mediumship sessions, for example, Cayce instructed that mirrors be covered or removed from the room. He explained that these objects could confuse spirits or serve as access points for lost, discarnate consciousnesses. Many mediums reported the presence of figures in the mirror or the sensation of being watched, even when they were alone in the room. Some ancient rituals also recommended never sleeping in front of a mirror, especially during spiritually unstable times, such as mourning, illness, or major transitions. Cayce supported this idea and went further. He said the mirror could serve as a vibrational anchor for unresolved emotions and even interfere with a person's auric field. On nights of light sleep, the soul could be drawn to unwanted realities through the reflection. The fear of mirrors in certain rituals is not idle superstition, but ancient wisdom reinforced by mediumistic observations like those of Cayce. He recounted cases of people who, after careless spiritual practices with mirrors, began to experience disturbing dreams, feelings of oppression in the bedroom, or sudden mood swings, typical symptoms of energetic contamination. For this reason, Cayce recommended discernment. The mirror, when used with purity and high intention, could be a meditation tool, but in charged environments or during rituals where the veil between worlds is loosened, it became a risk. And like any spiritual instrument, its use required responsibility. Cayce's warning resonates to this day. Don't underestimate what can reflect more than mere images. In certain times and places, covering a mirror is more than prudence. It's spiritual protection. Not everything seen is merely a reflection, and not everything reflected wants to be seen. There is a silent illusion that can inhabit the mirror, spiritual distortion. Cayce stated that, in states of inner imbalance, the reflection in the mirror may not correspond to the reality of the soul. Not because the physical object lies, but because what we see in it is filtered by accumulated beliefs, traumas, and emotions that distort our own spiritual image. When a person is immersed in guilt, fear, or rejection, they begin to see in the mirror what they believe about themselves, and not what they truly are. Cayce explained that the mind is capable of projecting these negative beliefs onto the reflection, creating a profound distortion between physical identity and spiritual essence. The mirror then becomes a theater where the ego acts out the soul's wounds. This phenomenon is more common than one might think. People with depression, for example, often avoid looking in the mirror because they feel they don't recognize themselves. Others spend hours in front of it trying to correct flaws that only they see. Cayce saw these as spiritual symptoms, warning that the problem isn't in the face, but in the spirit seeking reconnection. On the other hand, there are those who positively delude themselves in the mirror, creating a persona that ignores their own inner truth. Cayce called this vibrational camouflage, a defense mechanism that protects the ego but alienates the soul. The perfect image hiding the fragmented soul, a beautiful truth that cannot withstand the pain of silence. Healing, according to Cayce, lies in using the mirror as a mirror of the soul, not the ego. Looking at oneself with compassion, accepting what is there without judgment, can be a liberating step. The mirror can deceive, but it can also teach.
It all depends on the intention of the person looking into it. Whether through distortion or revelation, Cayce shows us that the mirror is more dangerous and more sacred than we imagine. The reflection doesn't lie, but it can tell you exactly what you're afraid to accept. And perhaps that's the mirror's true, hidden power. For Edgar Cayce, dreams have always been a bridge between the unconscious and the spirit. When a mirror appears in a dream, it carries powerful and symbolic messages.
Cayce believed that the mirror, in the dream world, represents the soul's attempt to reveal what is hidden or repressed. Seeing oneself reflected in a dream is like receiving a call to delve deeper into one's spiritual journey. One of the most common signs, according to Cayce, is a dream about broken mirrors. He interpreted this as a fragmentation of the soul, an indication that there are internal conflicts or unresolved traumas interfering with spiritual evolution. The shattered mirror shows the disconnect between who we are and who we believe ourselves to be. indicating that it is time to integrate forgotten parts of ourselves. When the mirror appears foggy or clouded, Cayce saw this as a blockage of spiritual perception. It can mean the person is unable to see themselves clearly, whether through denial or fear. It's as if the soul is saying, "You're not ready to face yourself, but you must try." And these dreams are invitations to honesty and inner awakening. Dreams about luminous mirrors or mirrors reflecting celestial landscapes are considered by Cayce to be rare signs of spiritual alignment. In these cases, the dreamer is approaching a true connection with the higher self. It's as if the mirror serves as a bridge to other planes of consciousness, offering glimpses of what lies beyond the material veil. There are also dreams where the mirror reflects nothing. Cayce interpreted this as a moment when the soul is lost, without a clear spiritual identity. The emptiness in the reflection is a silent cry. Who are you without your roles, without your masks? This absence can be frightening, but it is also an opportunity for reconstruction and rediscovery. Dreams about mirrors, according to Cayce, are spiritual experiences in disguise. They should not be ignored. Each image reflected in the dream world is a coded message from the soul for the awakening of the self. And the more we listen to these nocturnal calls, the more light we bring to the reflection we find upon awakening. One of the most impactful themes in Edgar Cayce's readings is what happens to the soul after death. In his accounts, he mentions the concept of life review, a moment when the spirit, upon leaving the body, examines all its actions, words, and intentions. Interestingly, Cayce compared this experience to looking into a gigantic spiritual mirror. In this mirror, the soul sees not only images of the past, but also relives emotions, choices, and consequences. According to Cayce, it is a vibrational reflection, where everything a person has been returns to them in the form of light, sound, and sensation. It is a mirror that does not judge, but reveals with mathematical precision the truth of the self, without masks, without lies. This astral mirror would be activated shortly after the transition, on an intermediate plane of consciousness. Cayce described how some spirits became trapped in this reflection because they couldn't accept what they saw. They relive repeated scenes of pain, regret, or pride, as if trying to rewrite the reflection, something that spiritually isn't possible until there's acceptance and forgiveness. On the other hand, souls at peace quickly free themselves from the mirror, having already lived with awareness and love. For them, the reflection is like confirmation that their journey was true to purpose. Cayce emphasized that no one escapes this spiritual mirror. It is not a punishment, but a tool for deep self-knowledge after the end of the physical body. This powerful concept connects to countless accounts of people who have had near-death experiences and described seeing their lives pass by like a movie. Cayce explained, "It's not an external movie, it's an internal reflection. It's the soul looking at itself for the first time without any material interference." Thus, the mirror is not just a symbol of ego or vanity. In Cayce's view, it is a symbol of return, of undeniable truth. And when the soul finds itself before it after death, it can no longer escape. Everything that was reflects, and everything that reflected remains. A profound reminder that every act matters. Although it may seem harmless, keeping mirrors in the bedroom, especially facing the bed, was a serious warning issued by Edgar Cayce. He observed that during sleep, when the soul partially detaches itself from the body to the spiritual plane, the mirror's reflection can interfere with this process. For Cayce, the mirror acts as a surface that amplifies energies, including confused, anxious, and those originating from denser planes. During sleep, the energy field is more vulnerable, and the presence of a mirror can act as a vibrational echo, distorting or reflecting unresolved emotions trapped in the environment. Cayce noticed that people who slept with mirrors facing them had more nightmares, felt tired upon waking, and even had difficulty remembering their dreams. According to him, this was no coincidence, but a symptom of spiritual overload. Furthermore, the mirror can retain emotional memories of the environment, especially if arguments, bereavements, or personal crises occurred there. Cayce suggested that, in these cases, the mirror acts as an energetic recorder that reproduces these psychic states during the night. The soul, seeking rest, finds itself surrounded by vibrations that are not its own and wakes up more charged than when it went to sleep. He also warned about the phenomenon of night gazes. Some people wake up in the middle of the night and feel like they're being watched. In many accounts, peripheral vision captures something in the mirror, a shadow, a presence, a figure that disappears when looked at. For Cayce, this could be a real energetic manifestation, a reflection of entities linked to unhealed emotional states. The solution, according to Cayce, was not to despair, but to act consciously. He recommended removing mirrors from the bedroom, especially if they faced the bed. If this wasn't possible, covering them with a light cloth at night would help minimize the impact. He also recommended prayer and regular energy cleansing of the space. Sleeping well is a spiritual act, and the bedroom should be a sanctuary for the soul to rest. According to Cayce, when you cover a mirror before bed, you are symbolically saying to the universe, "Here only peace enters." And this simple gesture can profoundly change the quality of your spiritual rest. Edgar Cayce dedicated much of his readings to warning about children's spiritual sensitivity. According to him, until the age of 7, a child's soul is in the process of vibrational adjustment with the physical body, a delicate process. During this period, mirrors can act as amplifiers or distorters of this connection, especially if used unconsciously. Cayce observed that young children could see more than adults through the mirror. They saw spiritual presences, subtle energies, and sometimes interacted with invisible friends who appeared only there. Many of these manifestations, he said, were real. The mirror acted as a kind of screen onto which the child's spiritual field was projected. Some parents reported strange behavior, babies laughing at the mirror, being startled by their own reflection, or pointing at something that wasn't there. Cayce interpreted this as the child's soul reacting to spiritual interference. He recommended that mirrors not be used as toys or distractions for very young children, especially during moments of emotional vulnerability. He also suggested paying extra attention after illness, trauma, or periods of excessive crying. At these times, the child's auric field is more fragile, and the mirror can reflect not only the child's face but also feelings of fear, insecurity, or abandonment, intensifying these states. The reflection, in these cases, can unconsciously mark the child emotionally. Therefore, Cayce proposed that mirrors be used wisely, prevent children from sleeping in front of them, avoid leaving large mirrors in the room where they play or rest, and always say prayers before bed. A child's soul needs to feel safe to develop, and the environment must protect this sacred journey. Respecting a child's gaze in the mirror is respecting the spiritual wisdom they already carry. Cayce reminds us, what appears to be imagination is often perception, and when it comes to mirrors, children see beyond appearances. They see with their souls. Beyond the risks, Edgar Cayce also saw in mirrors an underexplored spiritual potential. He taught that, when used with elevated intention, mirrors could become instruments of connection with the higher self, that part of the soul that remains connected to the divine, even in the face of earthly challenges. Looking in a mirror in a state of prayer or meditation was, for Cayce, an act of invoking inner truth. This exercise, according to him, should be done calmly, in a silent environment, with one's gaze fixed on one's own eyes. After a few minutes, many people reported subtle changes in expression, feelings of warmth or peace, and even intuitive responses arising spontaneously. For Cayce, this is the moment when the soul begins to manifest, bringing revelations that go beyond the rational mind. Contemplating oneself is not an act of vanity, but of spiritual courage. When we look deeply into ourselves, without judgment, we open space for the higher self to reveal itself. Cayce said this practice could aid in making difficult decisions, heal old emotional wounds, and even facilitate the awakening of dormant spiritual gifts. The mirror, in this context, becomes a sanctuary. He also taught that the gaze should be guided with humility and reverence. The mirror is not an oracle, but a passage. The mind must be free of expectations and open to inner silence. Often, the first answer will come not in words, but in sensation, in a subtle vibration. Cayce called this a sign from the higher self, a glimpse of the higher spirit trying to guide the way. To intensify the connection, Cayce suggested using white candles, soft music, and conscious breathing during the practice. Avoiding nighttime use and always concluding with a prayer of thanks were ways to securely seal the energy field. The mirror, when consecrated with faith and respect, becomes a channel between worlds. In Cayce's view, this exercise does not replace prayer or charity, but complements the path of self-knowledge. Looking oneself in the eyes and seeing something beyond the physical is, for him, one of the first signs that the soul is ready to remember who it truly is. The mirror, then, reflects more than an image. It reflects a mission. When understanding the mysteries behind mirrors, Edgar Cayce emphasized a crucial point: spiritual protection. He warned that just as mirrors can help connect with the soul, they can also absorb and reflect negative energies if used carelessly. Therefore, the energetic purification of these objects is as important as that of any altar or spiritual tool. Cayce recommended that mirrors be cleansed not only physically, but also energetically. One suggested technique involved using water with coarse salt and specific prayers to clear accumulated vibrations. Running one's hand lightly over the mirror's surface with the intention of breaking dense patterns was also cited as an effective symbolic method. Where the mirror is placed also makes a difference. Cayce advised against placing mirrors in front of doors or windows, as this could create unstable energy flows within the home. Avoiding mirrors from reflecting beds, prayer spaces, or rest areas is also essential. The reflection should not invade the space of spiritual retreat. Furthermore, he suggested consecrating mirrors used for spiritual practices. This means reserving a specific mirror solely for meditation or introspection, never using it for everyday use. Before each use, a prayer or mantra should be chanted, asking for protection and clarity. This preparation transforms the object into something sacred, sealing it with light. In cases where one feels unexplained discomfort when looking in a mirror, Cayce advised following one's intuition, covering the object for a while, moving it to another location, or even donating it if necessary. The soul recognizes vibrations that the mind doesn't understand. Ignoring these signals can open the door to greater spiritual discomfort. For Cayce, the mirror is neutral. It amplifies what is present. Therefore, using this instrument wisely is a testament to spiritual maturity. The reflection that returns from a consecrated mirror is not just light. It is consciousness, it is protection, it is truth. And before it, your soul gives thanks. When we look in the mirror, what do we really see? A fleeting image, or the silent reflection of a soul crying out for recognition? Edgar Cayce invites us not to fear the mirror, but to respect it as a portal between worlds, a mirror of spiritual truth. By understanding its symbolic and energetic nature, we awaken not only to who we are, but to who we are destined to be. The mirror does not lie. It only returns what our spirit is ready to face. Now I ask you, have you ever had a strange or spiritual experience when looking in the mirror? Share in the comments. Your story may illuminate another soul's journey in search of answers. If this video touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more spiritual revelations like this, and share it with someone who needs to see beyond the reflection. Let's reflect the soul's truth to the world together.